Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are now entering day 54 of the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And today, we're going to start off in the eastern area where most of the fighting is currently taking place. There has been some renewed attacks by Russian cruise missiles and Russian aircraft hitting targets in the west of the country, specifically recent attacks within the vicinity of Lviv and other areas as the Russian military continues to target and go after the means of Ukraine being able to wage war in this conflict. And we anticipate that will continue in terms of Russian forces, Russian cruise missiles, aircraft hitting rear areas deep inside of Ukraine. But right now we continue to see the Russians prepare the battlefield for this upcoming major offensive designed to drive towards Kramatorsk and Sloviansk and quite possibly pocket those forces within the vicinity. And we know that there are quite a few Ukrainian forces, upwards to 100,000, extending from Kharkiv all the way down towards Donetsk. So a tremendous force composition of the Ukrainian military within this area, and that's why we're seeing the Russians prepare for this very, very large offensive. And we've talked about just how critical this upcoming offensive is going to be for the Russian military in order to quite possibly reestablish initiative and reestablish some sort of momentum going into summer operations. But right now, the current focus for the Russian military is focused within areas just north of this river, and this is the Savrinsky Donetsk River, and the Russians are looking to secure both Severodonetsk, which is a very large town, city on the northeastern bank of the river, the Donetsk River. And we are continuing to see the Russians attempt to push both in a north south direction towards, in a southern direction towards Severodonetsk, and attack it from basically three different angles. And at the same time, we have seen the Russians move into this city here rather successfully. They have entered some very strenuous house-to-house, street-to-street fighting in the town of Crimea over the course of the last 3 days, and have established a bridgehead over the Krasna River. This is a smaller river that kind of feeds into the larger Donetsk River that is part of this military objective of the Russians in this ongoing operations. So the area near Crimea and Severodonetsk are really kind of two different objectives. Obviously, the Russians are looking to secure Severodonetsk before and establishing then bridgeheads over the Donetsk River, where they continue to make direct attack towards Kramatorsk, Bakhmut, and other areas that the Russians want to continue this operation. But over here in the area near Crimea, the idea is to clear out Ukrainian forces that are kind of on the, I guess it would be the north bank of the Donetsk River. And this is a fairly forested wetlands area with lots of rivers, tributaries, lakes, ponds, and what have you. And we know right now that there are quite a few Ukrainian forces, small units operating in these anti-tank teams that continue to maneuver in these areas with the intent on attacking Russian rear area supply and logistics units as the Russians continue its advance. So it's going to be very, very important for the Russians, both one, to secure obviously Severodonetsk and establish a bridgehead just to the southwest of the city, but also clear out these Ukrainian forces that are on the north bank and that are operating in these small towns and villages kind of on the north bank of the Donetsk River, the Servinsky Donetsk River. And there you can see it again. And for this operation to be successful for the Russians, we've seen one bridgehead, quite possibly two, just south of Izium. But the Russians are going to have to establish multiple bridgeheads over the Donetsk River all the way down to Severodonetsk. And you can see operations continuing as well in Popasnaya. The Russians have reportedly had a breakthrough within the vicinity of Popasnaya and continue to engage Ukrainian forces now inside of that town. And there is reported vicious street-to-street fighting happening there as well. But as you can see, this is really kind of shaping up in terms of what the Russians are trying to do. And again, I think we're going to see the Russians first gain control both over Severodonetsk, or look to gain control over Severodonetsk, and that could quite possibly be quite a challenge. And then at the same time, establish control over these pockets of Ukrainian forces that are on kind of on this north bank of the Donetsk River. And I'll try to trace it here where you can kind of see exactly what the Russians are in fact trying to do. If the Russians don't secure this, and the Russians launch said operation designed to pocket Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, and at the same time drive to these two fortress cities, we're going to see quite a few Ukrainian forces left in the rear areas of Russian forces that could become very, very problematic for the Russian operation to completely envelop and secure these two towns, Sloviansk and Kramatorsk. Compounding that, the Russians are also going to have the challenge of facing further Ukrainian forces coming from the west and attacking from the east. So I think you can see why this operation to first secure these areas just north of the Donetsk River, where my cursor is kind of hovering within the vicinity of Lyman and some of these other small towns and cities, and then obviously Severodonetsk as well. I think that is going to be a very, very important objective, even before we see the main Russian offensive to the south and to the northwest, south of Izium, as the Russians look to launch this operation. And as I talked about before, this upcoming operation by the Russians with the goal of seizing Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, incredibly important, because if the Russians can't seize control of these two cities, Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, it is going to be near impossible for the Russians to continue operations towards even larger cities such as Dnipro, Kryvyi Rih, and Poltava. All eyes right now are going to be on this operation within the Kramatorsk, Sloviansk area of operation. And I know I've been talking about this for several days now, but like with any complex and very challenging military operation, this could take days, weeks, even months to for the Russians to fully establish control and have a successful operation in this area. And again, it's going to be very, very pivotal for the Russians to do that. Now, after that, I think we're going to probably look at a Russian offensive within the vicinity of Kharkiv, however you would like to pronounce that. But I believe that will be the next objective for the Russians, as I've talked about in terms of once Kramatorsk, and if Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Severodonetsk is fully captured. And that has not been written in the historical records yet. Again, going to be a very challenging operation for the Russians. Are they going to be able to pull this off and complete that objective? Difficult to say at this point. But I would say that the future of the conflict right now, at least for the Russians, is probably going to be decided within operations near Kramatorsk and Sloviansk, given the level of investment that the Ukrainian military has made in this area in an attempt to hold it. Other news. We're still seeing activity to the south near Crimea. Right now, the Russians are right now not looking to make any sort of major advances within the vicinity of Kherson towards Mykolaiv. They have repelled several Ukrainian counterattacks within this area with tactical aircraft and heavy artillery and direct engagements on the ground as well. But all fighting right now is within that Kramatorsk-Sloviansk area of operations. In Mariupol, this map may not be entirely correct. We believe it is fairly correct in terms of kind of what we're looking at. We believe right now the most of the fighting and forces that the Ukrainians continue to have operational within the vicinity of Mariupol are within the confines of this giant steel and metallurgical plant that operates on the east bank of this river here, the Kalamus River. And we know that, and really you can't. It's difficult to appreciate the sheer size and scale when you say the Ukrainian forces, specifically the Azov regiment and forces that are affiliated with that regiment in terms of territorial defense forces that have since volunteered and are operating and are besieged in this area. You can't really appreciate the sheer scope and size of this facility unless you start to kind of scroll in. And I've talked about this in other episodes. As you can see, these are train cars. So right here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You have dozens of train cars. And as you scroll in, you start to really understand the size and scope of this building and facility. And underneath of this facility and underneath a lot of these administrative buildings and housing buildings to the east of this locale are tunnels and bunker complexes and other items that are other areas that can be very easily defended by the Ukrainians that were built both pre-Soviet or before the fall of the Soviet Union. Obviously, this was a tremendous resource asset of the Russians in terms of this giant metallurgical plant, steel facility. And as the Ukrainians have operated in this area very close to the original line of contact with the forces of Novorossiya, it was further reinforced by the Ukrainians, and it continues to be a thorn in the side of Russian forces in its attempt to take this area. And at the same time, I'm not so certain that the Russians want to completely rubbleize this giant steel manufacturing facility. As post-war, after this current war is over, I would imagine that the Russians see this as a viable asset that they want to try and not completely destroy. And that's why we're seeing some of this vicious urban infantry fighting that we are seeing within the vicinity of this area. The Russians did issue that declaration that any forces that did not surrender prior to 6 a.m. yesterday, they would be eliminated. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Russians, the National Guard units, the Chechen units that are operating within the confines of this area continue to proceed in this operation. It kind of makes sense that the Russians would just simply cordon off the area and simply starve the opposing force out. And that seems like the most rational course of action for Russian forces rather than making these costly attempts to seize control with ground forces. So we'll have to see how that eventually resolves itself. But that's kind of the activity that we're seeing on the ground right now. There's one other issue I wanted to talk about for just a brief period of time. And obviously, we understand Western media is fully supporting the Ukrainian cause, and a lot of the information that we are seeing, especially in mainstream media here in the United States, supports the state of Ukraine, President Zelensky, 100%. The benefit of any doubt is automatically given to President Zelensky. Now, with that being said, it has to be made very clear that there are things being done inside of Ukraine that I think eventually will come to light. And before I get into that, I just want to talk about the past history of war that the United States was involved in. Let's go back to World War II. And that would be the holding in detention nearly every person of Japanese descent inside of the United States in concentration camps in the Midwest. So back during World War II, 120,000 Japanese Americans were taken, many who lived on the West Coast, and were placed in concentration camps in places such as Colorado and other areas in the Midwest United States. And you can do your own research if this is the first time you've heard about it. This is very factual information that most people did not really know about until after the fact. So again, 120,000 Japanese Americans were placed in what you could define as concentration camps inside of the Western United States. Now, were these people being starved to death and killed? No, they weren't. But they were United States citizens in many cases, and their constitutional rights were suspended, and they were then placed in concentration camps inside of the United States. So when a war occurs, there are certain powers that tend to get executed, and in this case, this was one of those issues, those incidents that have happened or did happen, and now we probably look back on that in a negative light, right? So inside of the Ukraine, as this war continues, President Zelensky has been given and has authorized certain powers that you would not necessarily see during peacetime. And we can tell you that there are, in fact, a lot of incarcerations happening, people who may support of Russia. And given Ukraine's history, and given the eastern bank of the Dnieper River and other areas in Ukraine, there is that close relationship between Ukraine and the Russian Federation in past history. And that's one of the reasons why we have seen the Russian separatist activity in the eastern separatist areas. And yes, during the obviously we had the Orange Revolution take place in Kiev and other places in Ukraine that gave way to this Western supporting democracy in Ukraine. But at the same time, there is a fairly significant portion of the population, well, maybe not a majority, but certainly a very significant of the population did not support that Orange Revolution. And now, right now, as this war takes place, we are looking at quite possibly the removal, the incarceration of a lot of those folks who may not necessarily agree with President Zelensky, and that may be a opposition political party or what have you that tends to gravitate more towards the Russian Federation. That is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's because of Ukrainian history with being part of the former Soviet Union. Very complex issue. But at the same time, there are things being done right now that I think, as we fast forward 20 years in history, just like we look at the incident with the internment of Japanese Americans, 120,000 Japanese Americans, When we fast forward into history and we look back at this conflict, I believe we're going to find rather appalling things that have occurred and are currently occurring inside of Ukraine. And unfortunately, because of this absolute and complete support by Western media, there's a very high probability that things that should be investigated and should be looked at may not be occurring. And I know if you are a supporter of the Ukrainian state and its efforts to fight against the Russian invasion of Ukraine, then obviously what I'm saying is not going to resonate, and you will be in opposition to what I'm saying. But I think as we go into the future, 10, 20 years from now, obviously, we're going to look back on this, and some things that are currently being done by Zelensky are going to be looked back quite possibly in a much different light than what we're seeing right now in terms of just the sheer lack of reporting in terms of any opposition to what Zelensky may be doing. And believe you me, there are things that are being done right now that are incredibly unethical, and I'm and what I'm saying is going to not be received well, and I understand that, but it is a fact, and eventually it'll come to light, and I don't believe that in the long run that this content, this video, will in fact actually be foretelling, and it will age very well when we look back on the events that are actually occurring inside of Ukraine as we speak. That's all I have for today. Thank you for joining us, and we'll have more very, very soon. Have a good day.